Welcome back to another Friday episode of World Traveler Cooking. Today, Ossobucco alla Milanese. Now, I am making one important substitution here, but I'll go over that as I go through the ingredients. This is sort of one of the great Italian dishes. It is a braised veal shank, although I'm using beef today, that's the substitution. Typically served on risotto, and I'm not doing that for purposes of this video. This is sort of one of the classic Milanese dishes. You typically get a nice slice of veal shank on top of a nice bed of risotto, flavored with saffron and things like that, and it's usually very, very quite delicious. So, we're going to go ahead and go through the ingredients here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I have two ingredients which are not shown. So I have a piece of shank here. This is probably twice the size for a proper serving, so this will be rather big. But the important point here is that you really want shank with a good piece of, with a good bone in it and a good piece of marrow in the bone. That's very important. People really like the marrow. We have butter, about 50 grams, or about 25 in this case is fine. A small onion. We're going to use a bit of tomato, so maybe a quarter of this peeled and chopped. We're going to grate the skin off of about half of this lemon. We'll use one or two anchovy fillets. We'll have some garlic, salt, and flour. So those are our ingredients. So I'm going to chop this onion, flour my shank, and let's go ahead and get started. So this is now looking okay. We've been browning our onions here a bit. So now I am going to add in the shank, and I'm going to fry it lightly on both sides. Some people will poke it with a fork, but that disturbs the shank. So it's recommended that you flip it with a spatula or use tongs instead. So I'll be back in just a few moments. We'll flip it over, then we'll add the rest of our broth ingredients and get this stewing. Here I have now turned it over. And we're having to be a little careful so the onions don't burn. So in just a moment I will add it now. I have probably 1 to 2 tablespoons of chopped peeled tomato. And adding this now will help reduce the temperature for the onions. Bit of anchovy. Not very much, about 1 fillet is good probably for this much. And then we'll add some broth. Now I have a video on how to make Italian beef broth. You can use other Western broths, but obviously better not to use a Chinese or Indonesian beef broth mix. So I'm just going to take a bit of this here. Maybe half a ladleful at first. Unfortunately, I think the pan's a little hot, so I'm going to add another half a ladle, and I'm going to turn this way down, put it on another. It also depends to some extent on how well your lid fits. I have a lid with a hole in it, so I don't think that's great. So I will now set this off to the side and let it steam, let it braise. So cover it. I'm going to move it over to the other burner, a smaller burner, and turn it on low. And just let it, we'll be back in like an hour and a half. You will want to check it periodically. Here, let me just bring this over here. So I've moved it onto another burner. You will want to check it periodically to make sure it hasn't boiled dry. But in about 90 minutes or so, we'll be ready for the next step. Okay, so now this has been a bit over an hour and a half. It could be less time, but But it's not that sensitive since we are braising for a long time. So I'm going to take my parsley, lemon zest. For this much, maybe using close to a tablespoon. One clove of chopped garlic. And now we'll stir this up. Let it cook for 5 minutes. And then we'll go from there. Just 1 second. I'm just going to grab a holder. So we will stir this, we'll let it cook, we'll just let it get a little more, put the lid back on, let it sit for 5 minutes, and then we'll be back. Now it's been about 5 minutes, so normally this would be served on a plate or a bed of risotto. We're not going to do that today. So now I'm going to take this wonderful stewed mass here, and I'm going to put it along the side, because that's good too. Be right back once I have plated. So here I've put the stewed mixture on top, and I'm going to just decorate it with a little bit of parsley. And you know, the plate can use some decoration too, so maybe a couple pieces on the side here and a couple pieces on the side here. And there is our basic Ossobucco alla Milanese. Next up, the taste test. And now for the taste test. Just going to cut a piece of this off. Cutting really nicely, so I'm guessing it's going to be quite tender. And I'm going to just try a piece of it here. That's freaking delicious. This is amazing. This is 100% delicious. I'm gonna now just take a little piece of bread. I'm gonna scoop up some of this stewed mixture here of fat and stewed onions and stuff. Yeah, just awesome. This is an Italian classic, and it's an Italian classic for extremely good reason. Now, if you find this content interesting, you'd like to see more of it, please like, share, and subscribe. Helps me know that this is the kind of content you like to see. If you make a dish like this, you do it a little differently. Please write below in the comments what you do different. Or if you just have something else to say, I'd love to hear from you also. At any rate, recipes in the description. Bon appetit, and see you next week.